All right, so chapter 3 was all about graphing. So first we started with just graphing points. So remember, when you are graphing a point, the first number is your x, the second number is your y. This number tells you what you're going to do left or right. This number tells you what you're going to do up or down. Okay? So the first number on number 1 is a -4. That means I'm going to start by going left 4. Left is a negative number, so if it's a negative, we go left. And then the 5 is positive. A positive y value means you're going to go up. So you need to put a point right here. So left 4, up 5, and you label that with an A. What are your questions so far? I went left 4 and up 5.
What a number. Okay.
The first number tells you what to do left or right. The second number tells you what you're going to do up or down. So like on number 2, we're not going to go left or right at all because it's a 0. So you like don't move left or right at all, and then you go up 7. All right, number 3, it's a positive x, so I'm going to go right. It's a positive y, so I'm going to go up. So I'm going to start by going right 6, up 9. Put a point, label it with a C. All right, for number 4, point D, they're both negative, so a negative x means left and a negative y means down. So left 3, down 7, and I'm going to label that one with a D. Number 5, point E is at -4, 0. So I'm going to go left 4, up and down 0. So I'm still actually on the x-axis at the -4. That's point E. And then number 6, point F is left 7 and then up 7. So let me start out. Left 7 and then up 7. And then we label that point with an F. So again, things to remember. The first number tells you what to do left or right. If it's left, you go negative. If it's positive, you go right. If it's, I messed that up. If it's negative, you go left. If it's positive, you go right. Y values tell you what to do up or down. If it's a negative, you go down. If it's a positive, you go up. Raise your hand if you have any questions. Alright, 7 and 8 are all about rate of change. Remember, for rate of change, you subtract the y's on the top. And then on the bottom, you subtract the x's. Simplify the fraction if you can. And then you're supposed to notice if the rate of change is constant. So you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, until you check all the points. If you get the same rate of change each time, then it's a constant rate of change. If the rate of change is different, as soon as you realize it's different, you can stop and say, no, it is not a constant rate of change. And we always want the y's on top. So number 7, I'm going to do -4 minus 2, or sorry, minus -2 over 2 minus 1. On the top, that gives me a -2. On the bottom, that gives me a 1. If that's the rate of change each time, then I'll say yes, -2 over 1. So let's keep checking. We have a -6 minus -4 over 3 minus 2. Again, a minus and negative is a plus, so -6 plus 4 is -2 over 1. So it looks like it's constant so far. Have to check one more time. So -8 minus -6 over 4 minus 3. Same sort of thing is happening here. I'm getting negative 2 over 1. So is this a constant rate of change?
Yeah.
Yes, the rate of change is constant, and it is negative 2 over 1. Now, on your final, it might just say yes, negative 2. Remember, any number over 1 is just that whole number. So you need to know that negative 2 over 1 and negative 2 are the same thing. What are your questions on number 7? All right, we're going to do the same thing on number 8. So I'm going to do 9 minus 6 to start us off, and 3 minus 1. That gives me 3 over 2. So if I get 3 over 2 on the next one, I'm going to keep going. If I don't, I'm going to stop and say no. So 14 minus 9 over 4 minus 3. That is a 5 over 1. So does this one have a constant rate of change? No. Once you know it's a no, you're done. You don't have to calculate the rest of them. You don't have to tell me what the rates of change were. You can just say no, it is not a constant rate of change. I can find slope when given a graph. So how do I find slope when I'm given a graph? What do I do? I use the M and B thingy. Yeah. We'll get to that. What is important about the M thingy? Rise over run. Remember, we use M to stand for slope. M denotes slope. That was in your notes when we learned this stuff. Rise over run. Rise is your change up and down. Run is your change side to side. So on number 9, part A, count your rise from one point to the other. So to go from one point to the other, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my rise is 6. And then my run is 1, 2. So 6 over 2. If you can simplify it, simplify it. That simplifies to 3 over 1. Some people would actually write that as just the number 3. That's fine. Again, it's multiple choice, so you need to know that those are the same thing. Now, it makes sense that this simplifies because check out the first, the line A. If you go up 3 and right 1, you're still on the line. Up 3, right 1, you're still on the line. So that's why it's simplified. You don't have to go up all the way 6 points to go over 2 points. You could just go up 3 and right 1 and you're still on the line. Alright, B, we're going to do the same way. So start at one of the points. Count how you're going to get to the other one. Rise over run. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Down 8. Down is a negative rise. So negative 8. Now I'm going to count my run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going right, so that's a positive. Again, you can simplify here. They're both even numbers, so you can divide top and bottom by 2. That gives you 3 over 4. And once again, it makes sense because if you go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go right 3, 1, 2, 3, you're on the line again. So really there's a point in between on line B. And then again you can go down 4, right 3, still on the line. Rise over run. Raise your hand if you have questions. The next one says, I can find slope when given 2 ordered pairs. So remember, slope is M. When you're given 2 ordered pairs, this is where, very similar to rate of change, actually the exact same as rate of change, you subtract the y's on the top and the x's on the bottom. Alright, so I'm going to label the ordered pairs in the order that they gave them to me. So the first x value I'm going to call x1. The first y value I'm going to call y1. The second x value I'm going to call x2. The second y value I'm going to call y2. Now, Some teachers actually write this as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It doesn't matter. If you like starting at the second point and subtracting the first point, you can. Or students more typically like to start at the first point and then subtract the next one. So that's the way I do it. I start in the front and then go to the next point. But when I do rate of change, I start at the second one and go, I don't know. As long as you're going in the same order, it's fine. So if on the top you do the first point minus the second point for your y's, when you start the x's, you have to start with the first point. Okay, as long as you're doing the same order on the top and the bottom, order doesn't really matter. Alright, but I'm going to do it as I wrote the formula. So the first y1 is 10. The second y2 is 4. On the bottom, the first x is 5 minus the second x is 7. That gives me 6 over negative 2. Does anyone know what 6 over negative 2 would simplify to? Just a negative 3. Good. Some people like to keep slope as a fraction, so if you want to do negative 3 over 1, that's fine as well. It doesn't really matter. On the final, though, since it's multiple choice, I will leave the answers in simplest form, which would be negative 3. What are your questions? Alright, same thing on the next one, so let's label these points x1, y1, x2, y2, and do some subtracting. So the y is on top, the 2 minus 4, x is on the bottom, 5 minus 5. 2 minus 4 is what? Negative 2. 5 minus 5 is what? 0. Somebody type that into their calculator for me, please. Error. It says error. You cannot do it. It is not mathematically possible to divide by 0. This is when your slope is undefined. We just say UND period. So you cannot divide by a 0. When 0 is on the bottom, it's undefined. And the calculator knows. So if you're like, I don't even want to worry about remembering this, just remember when you get an error on the calculator that the answer is going to be undefined when you're talking about slope. What are your questions? Alright, let's keep it going then. The next one, we have x1, y1. We have x2, y2. Y's on top, so 5 minus negative 9. X is on the bottom, negative 1 minus 3. Minus a negative is like a plus, so 5 plus 9 is 14. On the bottom, they're both negative, so add them, keep the negative sign, you get negative 4. Now, again, these are both even numbers, so we can simplify. Divide the top by 2, you get 7. Divide the bottom by 2, you get negative 2. If you're using a calculator to simplify the fraction, you would, sometimes it doesn't like the negative sign, so you have to be careful. You might just have to keep track of those in your head. But you can do 14, ABC 4, enter. The problem is it will make it a mixed number. We don't want mixed numbers, so you have to hit second ABC button again, and it will make it an improper fraction. If anyone needs help with the calculator, just let me know and I'll come over and help you type it in. Alright, I guess you're all doing fine then. Let's finish up this page. So on the last one, again we have the x1, y1. We have the x2, y2. Y is on the top, 4 minus 4. X is on the bottom, 1 minus 3. That's 0 over negative 2. What is 0 divided by anything? 0. Notice the difference between 11 and 13. On 11, the 0 is on the bottom. Our answer is undefined. 13, the 0 is on the top. Our answer was 0. If you are having a hard time remembering that, the calculator knows it. Alright? The calculator knows that 0 divided by a number is 0, and a number divided by 0 is impossible. It will give you an error. So, use those calculators wisely. Raise your hand if you have any questions. Alright, so we are going to start our graphing section. The first I can statement says I can graph linear equations using a table or using slope and y-intercept. So we're going to start by using a table. Then we're going to use the M and B method. Any questions before we get started? Alright, when we're using a table, you need an X column, you need a Y column. The X numbers I always plug in are 0, 1, and 2. Remember, you can plug in different X's if you want. Your graph should look the same. It'll just be like a different portion of the graph. It's up to you. 0, 1, and 2 are the easiest numbers to plug in, so stick with those if you want. Alright? When you're plugging 0 in, you're taking the X out. You're putting a 0 in where you see the X. Then you're doing that same thing with a 1. Then you're doing that same thing with a 2. Then you're doing the math. That'll give you your Y values. So what's 4 times 0? 0. So my first Y is a 0. When X is a 0, Y is a 0. When X is a 1, what does the Y equal? 4. When X is a 2, what does the Y equal? 8. 0, 4, and 8 are your Y's. Good. Now, these are ordered pairs just like 1 through 6 on this packet. This number tells you what to do left and right. This number tells you what to do up and down. So I'm going left and right 0, up and down 0. So right where you started, that's the origin. For your next point, you'll go right 1, up 4. And for your next point, you'll go right 2, up 8. Those should form a straight line. If they don't, you have made a mistake. What questions do you all have? Alright, number 15, same setup. We are making a table. For our X numbers, we are using 0, 1, and 2, and then we're doing the math to find the Y's. So I'm going to start with 0 minus 3, then I'm going to do 1 minus 3, then I'm going to do 2 minus 3, and those are going to give me the corresponding Y values for my X values. Alright? So when when X is 0, Y is negative 3. When X is 1, Y is negative 2. When X is 2, Y is negative 1. Those are your 3 ordered pairs. So left and right, 0, down 3. Right 1, down 2. Right 2, down 1. Connect those with something super straight. Put some arrows on the ends. Alright, we can jump down to number 16. Same setup, you're just going to have a couple more steps when you start to find your Y's. We are plugging in a 0, then a 1, then a 2. Remember, the calculator is pretty good at order of operations. If you just want to type in negative 2 times 0 plus 5 all at once, it should be able to do both steps. Alright? I'm just going to do them out loud. Negative 2 times 0, that's 0. And 0 plus 5 is 5. Next we have negative 2 times 1, that's negative 2. And negative 2 plus 5 is 3. The last one we have negative 2 times 2, that's negative 4. And negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. Then I'm going to graph those 3 ordered pairs. So left and right, 0 up 5. Right 1 up 3. Right 2 up 1. This is sort of when you can stop and check yourself. If you are not getting a straight line, you have made some sort of error. If you are getting a straight line, that's a good indicator that you're on the right track. Sometimes you can be a little off, but you should feel good if you're getting a straight line. What are your questions on graphing with a table? So for all of these, we will think of y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope. And since we're talking about a graph, it's actually your rise and your run value. And then b is your y-intercept. That's where you're going to start. So b tells you where to start. M tells you what to do after that. So on all of these, I want you to write a space for your M value and a space for your B value. What is either one of them on 17? Which one do you already know?
2.
2 is which one? M. M is always written as a fraction, so I'm going to write it as 2 over 1. Now B is a little trickier on number 17. What is B?
0.
0. You're not adding anything on the end. So B is 0. B tells you where to start. So on the y-axis, go to the 0, put a point. That's your first point for this graph. This is your up and down number. This is your left and right number. So I'm going to rise 2. I'm going to run 1. I'm going to put a point. Bless you. I'm going to rise 2. I'm going to run 1. And I'm going to put a point. Once you have 3... connect them with something super straight and put arrows on the end to show that these keep going on and on and on in both directions. What are your questions? M and B method goes a little bit quicker just because we don't have to do all that algebra and order of operations stuff. So if you feel comfortable with M and B, this is probably the way I would go on the final. Remember, on your final, I'm not going to know if you actually did a table or if you did M and B. So, graph whichever way you feel most comfortable. Any questions on 17? All right, let's jump down. See if we can fit these on the same one. What's with this giant space? All right, that should be good. There. All right, what is M on number 18? 1 over 1, yes. Anytime you don't see a number in front of the x, it's like having a 1. And anytime you have a whole number that you want to write as a fraction, you put it on top of a 1. So 1 over 1, b is 6. So what am I going to do first? Go up 6, put a point. From that 6, what are you going to do? Go down 1, so our rise is a negative? Yeah, we're going up 1, right 1. They're both positives. Positives are up and right. Very good. I'll give you a second to catch up. All right, number 19. We need M. We need B. What is my M?
M is 5 over 3.
Negative 5 over 3. Now, put the negative with the 5 or with the 3, but not both. All right, I always just go with the top. So the 5 is negative, the 3 is positive, and my B is a 1. So start at the 1, then what?
Go down 5.
Go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over 3. 1, 2, 3. And those overs are to the right. And then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm getting a little bit off of my graph, but you should be able to get it all on yours. Alright, any questions on graphing with M and B? So I can graph special lines. Remember, I told you whatever it equals, you're either going to have x equals or y equals, and that's the only variable that you'll see. That's how you know it's a special line. If it's a y equals, find that number on the y-axis. So I'm going to find 5 on the y-axis. Put a point there, and then draw a line through it. You're either going side to side or you're going up and down. If you go up and down and you already have a point on the y-axis, you're just highlighting the y-axis. That would be your indication that you did it wrong. Okay? So you want to go through the y-axis at 5. You don't want to be the y-axis. Okay? You want to go through the y-axis. Same thing on number 21. We want to go through the x-axis at -2. We don't want to be the x-axis. Okay? So start on the x-axis at -2. The only way to do that is to go straight up and down. What are your questions? For this section, it just says graph the following lines using any method you would like. So you get to pick the method. You can use a table, you can use M and B, or if it's just a y equals or an x equals with no other variables, then it's a special line. In an effort to save paper, I put the two graphs side by side. They didn't quite fit up and down, so sorry if that looks kind of weird for you. But number 22, does anyone have a preference? Oh, who said it first? Okay, we'll do M and B. You can do X and Y, see if you get the same answer, and if not, then one of us is wrong. Alright, so what is M on number 22? 5 over 1. What is B? -7. So I'm going to go down to the -7 on the y-axis. Then I'm going to rise 5. I'm going to run 1. I'm going to rise 5. I'm going to run 1. This is your line. Count on yours. Up 5, right 1. It's easier to count on yours than to try to follow along with mine. Now, another option would be a table. If you did a table, you would get 0, -7. You would get 1, -2. And you would get 2, +3. Now look, those are the same 3 points. It's a miracle. So either way, you should get that exact same graph. Any questions? All right, number 23. What are you guys thinking? You go to the y-axis where?
Down 1. I mean up 1.
Up 1, and then what do you do?
Wait, down 1. Is that a negative?
No, it's a positive.
Oh, okay, up 1 and then you just draw a line.
And then you just draw the line. Good. Sorry, mine's kind of zoomed out, so it's harder to see, but follow along on yours. It's a positive. All right, so on Monday, I'm going to give you another Chapter 3 review, and you're going to work on it on your own. So keep this one handy, bring it back with you on Monday so that you can see how we did them, and then you can start working on it independently. Any questions?